The day my husband moved his parents in without asking me was the day everything changed. I stood in the doorway, staring at the packed boxes stacked like silent accusations in the living room. My house, my sanctuary, was no longer mine. The walls, once a reflection of who I was, now seemed to echo with voices I hadn't invited. I had worked tirelessly for years to create a space where I could breathe, a place where peace and independence were sacred. But that peace was shattered in an instant. How could he do this without even asking? My husband's silence was the loudest thing in the room, louder than his parents' bustling arrival, louder than the questions that filled my head. And as I tried to digest the suddenness of the situation, a sinking feeling washed over me. This was only the beginning. Something bigger was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. The house was everything I had ever dreamed of. A spacious, modern masterpiece nestled in a quiet, upscale neighborhood. Each room was a reflection of me, sleek lines, minimalist furniture, and just enough warmth to make it feel like home. The high ceilings, large windows, and open-plan design gave the house an airy, almost ethereal quality, like it was meant to be a place of fresh starts. This was my new chapter. It wasn't just about the house itself, though. It was about what it represented. It was the culmination of years of hard work, a symbol of my independence and the life I had built for myself. Here, in this home, I was free to be me, to breathe in the privacy I so desperately needed. I had worked for this peace, fought for it, but then there was him, my husband, who had grown up with a different sense of family. He was used to the constant presence of his parents, their voices, their opinions, always just around the corner. His idea of family was one of closeness, of sharing everything. I valued my space, my solitude. They valued being your space, whether you liked it or not. I had feared this day was coming, but I never imagined it would come crashing into my life so suddenly. It happened so casually, like it was nothing more than a minor decision, one that didn't need to be discussed. I was in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, when Christopher walked in, his face unreadable. "I've talked to my parents," he said, the words slipping out too easily. "They're moving in with us for a while." My hand froze mid-air, the mug hovering just above the counter. "What?" I asked, certain I had misheard him. "It's only temporary," he said, as if that somehow made it better. "They need a place to stay while they sort things out." The words didn't quite reach my ears in the way they should have. I stood there, trying to make sense of what he was saying, but confusion overtook me. Why wasn't I consulted? This wasn't just about giving someone a couch to sleep on for a few nights. This was a life-altering decision, one that involved my space, my home, and yet it had been made without so much as a conversation. I could feel my frustration bubbling beneath the surface, but I bit my tongue, not ready to explode just yet. But deep down, I knew this moment would be the start of something far bigger than either of us realized, something that would change everything. The moment Christopher walked through the door that evening, I knew it was time to confront him. My heart pounded in my chest, the anger I had been holding back all day finally threatening to burst. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. "Christopher," I said, my voice shaking with barely contained emotion. "We need to talk about this." He paused, seeing the look in my eyes. "About what?" His tone was casual, like this was just another minor issue to address, like it was no big deal. "This," I said, gesturing around the house, the walls I had built with so much care. "You can't just move your parents in without consulting me. This house is mine too. I worked for it. It's supposed to be our space, but now it's not even ours anymore." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's only temporary, babe. They're family. They need somewhere to stay. Why are you making this such a big deal?" I could feel the frustration rising, the pressure of his dismissiveness suffocating me. "It's not about that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about respect. This house, my privacy, it's a symbol of my independence. I've worked my ass off for this. And now you're just handing it over without a second thought?" He crossed his arms, looking at me with a kind of confused indifference. "You're overreacting. They won't be here long. You'll see. It'll be fine." I stared at him, the words caught in my throat. How did I end up here? How well did I really know this man? Was this the same person who had promised me a future built on mutual respect? The thought gnawed at me, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could trust him anymore. The doorbell rang, and with it, my stomach dropped. I had barely braced myself before Christopher opened the door, and there they were, Lily and Ethan, his parents. Lily entered first, her presence overpowering, as always. The air seemed to thicken with the scent of her strong floral perfume, a fragrance that filled every corner of the room before she even stepped inside. Her high heels clicked sharply against the floor, as though she was making an announcement with each step. "Oh, Christopher, your home is just lovely," she cooed, her voice dripping with sweetness, though her eyes scanned the space as if she were evaluating it. Ethan followed behind her, his face set in a permanent frown, arms folded across his chest. He barely acknowledged me, his cold eyes brushing over me like I was invisible. I could feel his judgment, his silent criticism, weighing on me, making me shrink back into myself. The tension in the room was thick. I had imagined this moment would be uncomfortable, but nothing prepared me for how alien it felt. This house, my sanctuary, now felt like a stranger's home. The walls that once spoke of peace now seemed to vibrate with Lily's constant chatter and Ethan's quiet disapproval. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had worked for was slipping away, piece by piece. Lily's subtle manipulations began almost immediately, each one more grating than the last. At first, I tried to overlook the small things, like when she rearranged the kitchen cabinets without asking, shuffling my neatly organized spices and utensils into a chaotic mess. "You really shouldn't keep the sugar next to the flour," she remarked, her tone light but condescending. "You'll regret it when you're baking." I wanted to snap, but I bit my tongue. Then she started making comments about my parenting. "Oh, sweetie," she said one morning as she watched me handle a minor tantrum from my daughter. "Have you tried a softer approach?" My Ethan was always so much more cooperative when well, never mind. Her words dripped with judgment, as though I was somehow doing it all wrong. The worst part? Christopher didn't even notice. He never did when his mother spoke like this. I began to feel like a guest in my own home, suffocated by her presence, her opinions, and the way she seemed to shift everything just a little bit closer to her version of reality. My patience, which I had so carefully preserved for my daughter's sake, was starting to wear thin. I could feel the walls closing in, her influence creeping into my life more and more, until I wasn't sure who was in charge anymore. Every day, I wondered how long I could keep pretending that this was still my home. It happened one morning, over something as trivial as cereal. Noah, my son, was sitting at the table, spooning his favorite sugary flakes into his bowl when Lily walked in, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. She paused, eyes narrowing as she watched him. "Really?" she said, her voice dripping with judgment. "He's still eating that for breakfast? No wonder he's been so sluggish lately. You should be giving him something more wholesome." My jaw clenched. My patience, which had already been stretched thin, snapped. Who was she to tell me how to feed my child? I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm for Noah's sake, but the words that followed came out in a sharp, almost strangled whisper. "I'm his mother, Lily. I know what's best for him." She didn't back off, though. "I'm just saying, if you had a better routine, maybe a proper bedtime, he'd be better behaved." My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a hot flush of anger rise in my throat. This wasn't just a comment. This was an invasion of my boundaries, a public shaming of my choices. I had tried to stay patient, tried to keep the peace, but in that moment, something inside me broke. This wasn't just about cereal anymore. This was about respect, and I wasn't getting any. I couldn't hold it in anymore. That night, after the cereal incident, I stormed into the living room, where Christopher was flipping through his phone, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "Christopher, we need to talk." "Now," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He looked up, his eyes tired. "What's wrong now?" "This," I snapped, gesturing toward the kitchen where Lily was still talking about bedtime routines. "You have to stop letting your parents walk all over me. I can't breathe in my own house anymore. I'm not your child's caretaker and your mother's doormat." His expression shifted to defensiveness. "It's not like that. They're just trying to help, okay? They're family." "Help?" I nearly choked on the word. "They're suffocating me. You're supposed to be on my side, not theirs. I'm your wife, and I need you to respect my boundaries." He sighed, rolling his eyes in that familiar, dismissive way. "You're making this such a big deal. It's not like they're going to be here forever. You're overreacting." My hands shook as I struggled to keep my composure. "I'm not overreacting. You're choosing them over me. Again." He didn't reply, just looked away, his silence louder than any words he could have said. That was the moment I realized. I was no longer the priority, and it hurt more than I could say. I had just come back from the grocery store when I heard the sound of rustling from Noah's room. My heart sank. I pushed open the door, and there she was. Lily, standing over Noah's dresser, rummaging through his personal belongings, his journals, his favorite toys, all tossed around like they were hers to sort through. I couldn't breathe. The violation of his privacy, my privacy, was the final straw. My chest tightened as I stepped forward, fury building. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice trembled with rage. Lily turned, startled but unbothered, her hands still full of his things. "I was just checking on his things. You know, making sure everything's in order." "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "You need to leave, both of you. Now you're crossing lines, and I won't stand for it anymore." Her face faltered, but I didn't care. The weight of everything, the suffocation, the constant overstepping, had pushed me past my breaking point. They had to go, and they were going to learn the hard way that enough was enough. I stepped outside for a moment, needing to breathe after the confrontation. My hands shook, but this time it was different. The anger wasn't burning me up anymore. It was a spark. I needed clarity, and I needed to talk to someone who would understand. I dialed my sister's number, waiting impatiently as it rang. "Hey sis, what's going on?" Her voice was a comforting anchor. I let it all spill out. The moving in, the constant criticisms, Lily's invasions of Noah's privacy. I don't know what to do anymore. I can't keep living like this. There was a pause, and then her voice, firm and reassuring. "You need to stand your ground. This is your life, your home. You've worked so hard for it. You've already sacrificed enough for everyone else. You have every right to demand respect." I felt a shift inside me, a new sense of clarity. Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back to myself. I could feel the weight lifting as I realized I didn't have to keep sacrificing my peace for others. I was done. I was going to reclaim my space, my life, and finally take control of this situation. I was ready for the showdown, and this time I wasn't backing down. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, trying to steady my racing thoughts. It was time to take control. I needed to lay everything out, to see it all in black and white. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down everything Lily had done to overstep her boundaries, each little act that had slowly chipped away at my peace. First, it was the kitchen, rearranging my things without asking. Then it was the constant critiques of how I parented Noah, the judgmental comments about our routines, the unsolicited advice. Lily walking into Noah's room without knocking. Her presence in every corner of my life, like she was a silent force, reshaping everything in her image. I made a list, item by item, trying to be methodical, but the anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just about her. It was about Christopher too. Why hadn't he protected me? But I couldn't let that distract me. I had to stay focused. I was still his wife, still a mother, but I was me too. My own needs and boundaries mattered. The confrontation was inevitable. There was no avoiding it anymore. I couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision hanging over me. But for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it head on. The moment had arrived. Christopher, Lily, and Ethan were all gathered in the living room, the air thick with unspoken tension. I could feel my heart pounding, but I stood tall, refusing to let fear take over. I had already prepared myself for this moment, and I wasn't going to back down. "I'm done," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "I've had enough of the disrespect, and it ends now." Christopher looked up from his phone, confusion and irritation flashing across his face. "What are you talking about?" "You... all of you," I said, turning to face them. "Lily, Ethan, you've invaded every part of my life, from my kitchen to my son's privacy. You've criticized my parenting, rearranged my things, and walked into my son's room like you owned it. I won't stand for it anymore." Lily's face reddened, her mouth opening in shock. "I was only trying to help. You're being dramatic." "No," I shot back, my voice rising. "You're crossing boundaries. You don't get to tell me how to raise my child or how to run my household." Ethan sneered. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill? Get over it." I turned to Christopher, locking eyes. "And you, how long were you going to let this go on? You haven't protected me. You haven't defended me once." His face hardened, but there was a crack in his defense. I could see it in his eyes. He realized I wasn't going to back down. "I'm asking you to leave," I said, looking at Lily and Ethan. Now." The room went silent. The shock in their eyes was palpable, but I stood firm. This was my home, my life, and I was ready to reclaim it. The days after the confrontation were tense, but there was a shift in the air. Christopher didn't fully back me, and I could see the conflict in his eyes every time he spoke about his parents. His reluctance to side with me left a bitter taste, and I knew our future together was uncertain. He still hadn't fully grasped how deeply I needed his support. But for the first time in a long while, I felt empowered. I had taken control of my life, my home, and my boundaries. The anger I once held inside now fueled my determination to never allow anyone, no matter who they were, to overstep again. The future might still be unclear, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't tolerate disrespect any longer. I would fight for my family, for my peace, and for the home I had built. And no one, not even the people closest to me, could take that away.